aware, or you certainly should be aware, that there's presently a tangle between the EC and the political parties. Yesterday, there was an IPAC meeting, and at that meeting, the political parties demanded that presiding officers who failed to sign the pink sheet, that's the declaration or results, should be sanctioned. The EC said they cannot be sanctioned. What is the way forward going into the 2016 elections? Now, earlier on, that must have been on Thursday. In the morning, Dr. Farijan at an NCCE forum assured that the issues that came out through during the Supreme Court hearing on the petition or the judgment will be tabled for consideration at the IPAC meeting, and this will include whether or not there should be sanctions or no sanctions for those who violated Article 49(3) by not signing the pink sheets, where also the definition of overvoting will be thrown to IPAC to determine which of the definitions should be taken. Is it Dr. Baumier's or Esiedun Ketier's or the classical one, so to speak? The question of NVNV, no verification, no vote, whether it should be continued. And actually, an election expert also advised that we should abandon it because it's a potential for some problem. On this one, I'd like to start with you, Abdul Malik Kubako Jr. What do you think is what is going on, particularly with respect to the call for sanction? The EC says they cannot be sanctioned.
Well, you know, the Supreme Court, what was the exact decision taken on that aspect? Is it the 49 one or so? The Shah that was in there.
Right.
I haven't done immediate recollection, but you know, what was it? I think the Supreme Court virtually did not make the Shah a Shah.
What the court said is that really it does not invalidate the results, and
so,
more importantly also because the agents were there and signed.
Yeah, so,
and don't visit the sins of the presiding officers on the innocent voter who is entitled to vote.
So subsequent to this, in my candid opinion, apparent, and I'm being charitable, dilution of, you know, whatever criminal implications not signing could have had. Subsequent to this Supreme Court thing, if we were to charge anybody for an offense, the perceived offense, and send them to the High Court, because that's where I think will be the appropriate forum,
right,
before you get any further, what would be the implication? How would the Supreme Court verdict relative to that particular aspect impact on the whatever proceedings, the proceedings that would take place, and for that matter, the final verdict? That's where I have my doubt, because otherwise, in a very street, you know, knowledge type, I was thinking that once you violate a certain portion of the Constitution or even the electoral laws, that it must come with sanctions.
Right.
Ordinarily, that's the way I would have proceeded.
Let me give you a little reminder. One of the judges, Akoto Banfo, said this when she dismissed the petition on that ground. She says that the respondents did not deny that in some cases the presiding officers failed to sign the pink sheet. In fact, the second respondent tendered Exhibit SA4, a national summary of regional results of sheets not signed by the presiding officers, having therefore admitted that there were at least 905 polling stations in which presiding officers failed to apply their signatures. So this is an admission that it is true that you had at least 905 polling stations where the pink sheets were not signed.
But the verdict did not invalidate,
correct,
those 900 or so polling stations.
Correct.
And so that's what I'm asking. If it did not, what weight do we place on that article? I've forgotten. Is it 49 something?
49.3.
Yes. What weight do we place on it based on what the Supreme Court has done? Assuming we were to charge the quote-unquote offenders and proceed to the High Court to deal with them, I'm asking. I'm just speculating. I'm just brainstorming. I'm asking, what would be the effect of the Supreme Court verdict on how a high court judge or a high court would handle this matter.
The
I need
EC's
some
position is this, that, and this is law, per Article 1910 of our Constitution. Nothing is a crime unless it has been so defined by law and the punishment has been prescribed.
Yes, so why are we wasting time talking about sending some people to
This
the
is
court?
what the parties are insisting.
Which
ought to happen.
parties?
Both
All
the
the parties?
NPP, NDC,
I'm surprised.
Yes.
I'm surprised. I don't know.
They
I
are
thought I
together
heard
in
only
this.
the NDC articulating that view. I thought I heard only the General Secretary of the NDC articulating. But I would be surprised if all the parties are together on this. I think it will be an exercise in futility at the courts. That's my candid opinion.
So what?
Because based on
They
even the
failed
Article
to do a
19 you are
duty.
talking about.
They failed to do a duty which almost, could have led to a rerun of the elections. A duty for which, because of their failure, this Supreme Court says it was sharply divided.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court ended up not doing, then they didn't do justice to the issue. Because that was the highest point at which we could have dealt with this matter. Okay, the alternative being a constitutional amendment of some sort to try and make the thing look more realistic and practicable within the context of elections. But if that didn't happen at the Supreme Court level, where we could have used the law, the judicial processes itself to cure that mischief, I am saying that post the Supreme Court verdict, we are going to capture, quote unquote, these offenders and send them to the High Court to be tried on that thing. I have a feeling it would be a Herculean task, and I have a feeling that it will be difficult. I'm not a lawyer. Those who are lawyers here perhaps will have a better way of articulating these things. But I really don't see
one of the
much
judges
happening there.
actually gave a suggestion. I read to you, Adinira, what she had to say. She said, I would, in the absence of explicit statutory language that specifies the election is voided because of the failure of the signature of a presiding officer, conclude that the votes on the unsigned sheets are valid. Failure by the presiding officers to sign declaration forms did not affect the results of the elections at the respective polling stations. And this is what she says. The presiding officers who did not sign the declaration forms are liable to be sanctioned.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I see, it's just a confusion in the minds of people as to punishment. There are so many levels of punishment. I mean, a person can be dismissed, a person can be suspended, a person can be
prosecuted. The very moment you talk of prosecution,
its own staff,
you are talking legal sanctions.
Its own staff, who did some wrong, have been dismissed.
Exactly.
That's administrative.
That's a sanction. They've been sanctioned, correct. But you see, the element of the mens rea, I mean, the man must have had some intention that deliberately doing something. And that proof is difficult. I mean, like you rightly said, Article 1911 is absolutely clear that no person shall be convicted for a crime that is not written. I mean, so what crime are you going to prosecute them?
I read 1910.
10. No person shall be tried for a criminal offense. No, 11. No,
it's 11, right? 11, right. Correct, thank you.
Unless the offense is defined and the penalty for it is prescribed in a written law. Correct. The same thing is in the criminal code, our criminal code. So it's real. So unless they can say that there's an offense that's not signing, you are liable to this, the sanction is this, this is an idle talk. But really, I think that in fairness, they are entitled to say, sanction those people who didn't sign. And that must take place. One, you sanction them if the permanent staff, by dismissing them or suspending them.
Just hold on 1 minute. How do you reconcile that with Regulation 17.5 of CI 75?
Yes.
Which, and I read, 5 says, a presiding officer or polling assistant who contravenes the laws and regulations governing the conduct of elections commits an offense and is liable to sanctions applicable under the electoral laws of Ghana.
No, contravening the law. That's what without the point. I skipped it because it was too a bit of legalese. But really, contravene. If you say a person contravened, then it says that the person deliberately did something that he knew he ought not to have done and whatnot. The EC's position was that most of those people, administratively, they just forgot or they were under pressure or whatnot. We all make mistakes. That is the whole point about this petition. We need to strengthen our system, our mechanism for ensuring that these errors, human errors, do not occur. That's why in South Africa, they say that after the election, after the results come in, they have an independent body,
to
audit immediately, to take care of the human error. But if we are going to say we are going to have a 100% error-free election, then we are dreaming.
You seem to have been nodding when he said that. When I read Jasadira's, position that those who did that ought to be sanctioned. What sort of sanctions can be applied to them when, by law, it appears they haven't?
Well, you have read another law.
Correct.
It's written.
Correct.
And it said if you contravene, that you commit an offense under the electoral law. So truly, if the Electoral Commission was minded to ask for prosecution as a basis for charging those people. But the argument he has made is that these were volunteers, not temporary staff that were hired. That argument, in my view, if that's the basis for saying these people cannot be prosecuted, I beg to differ. If you look at the budget that the Electoral Commission...
First, you say they can be prosecuted?
Yes, you have read the law yourself, the CI.
It says they will face the sanctions as prescribed by the applicable election laws.
Yes.
Which election law are you going to use against them?
The CI is an electoral law.
Yes, but it doesn't prescribe the punishment.
CI, the CI indicates that you must sign electoral. The presiding officer must sign. It is one of the laws.
Well, what I'm saying is that it doesn't prescribe the punishment.
Wait, what is it saying that?
Yes.
A presiding officer of a polling station who contravenes the laws and regulations governing the conduct of elections commits an offense is liable. Which are the ones? These are public election regulations, right?
Correctly.
There are, I think, about 3 or 4 of them, different ones, registration and so on. Now, if you go to this way, you might find offenses.
In this, there's no offense directly as far as this one is concerned.
Right. But I'm sure if you go to the other one, you find offenses. And so if any of the electoral laws that have specified offenses, the persons can be tried under those ones.
So the political parties ought to be doing that research and providing the EC with that evidence.
No, but first you must agree that these people are prosecutable. And then I can assist you in how to do about. But you've taken the position that the Constitution says that unless an offense is prescribed and a sanction recommended. Now you have shown that the offense is prescribed.
So point to him that this is what can happen. But you're not doing any such thing.
Well, I don't know how. When I heard him, Dr. Farijan, make that statement at a public lecture. So the opportunity to point out those ones was not there. This is your research.
No, I'm talking about at the IPAC meeting yesterday. The parties should have done their research and go to him and say they can be punished under this law.
Well, I don't know whether that happened or not. I don't have the evidence of what happened at that IPAC meeting. But it's never too late to point out what there is wrong. But we should not accept the principle that all human beings make mistakes. So it's a human error. Because if we accept that principle, then we'll have no basis for punishing anybody, because everybody can come under, I'm a human being, I made a mistake. So some offenses are strict liability offenses. Others, you must prove that there was an intention. And unless you put the person to trial, you will not get the opportunity to prove that the person, there was a mens rea or the intent to commit the offense. However be it, I think what should be important to all of us is that we should make it unattractive for people to want to make their mistakes, even they so desire. And I think that's the basis upon which the political parties are asking that people be prosecuted. Now, if we leave it as it is, it's a human error. Then, like my mother used to say, if I am able to meander through and the thing goes through, if there's a credit, I get it. If not, But if there's a real threat of sanction, that's why I've always said that attitudes will not change unless laws are enforced. If there's a real threat of sanction, then even if somebody is influencing you, or you're a lazy person, when it comes to doing your work, you will be more mindful of doing the proper thing than being like a desical. Because like you said, indeed, many of us, or many trained lawyers, find the conclusion of the Supreme Court quite strange in view of the decision the Supreme Court had taken in the definition of shall, enforcement of shall, even when Ghana itself has contracted loans and taken advantage of the loans, failed to put the loan before Parliament, our own failures, then we still go back and take advantage of it and declare the loans null and void. Even those circumstances, the Supreme Court had held that shall is shall. You know, however be it, I don't think that we should go back. We should look forward. What can we get out of these? What is it that...
But is it also not instructive to note that the court says, if you want to construe this strictly and make the non-signing or non-signature invalidate the entire process, then all you are doing now is that you are leaving the elections into the hands of the presiding officer when it's actually supposed to be the voters' right. And again, if I may just say how graphic Justice Bafuboni puts it, he says, so that if a presiding officer, either from pressure of work, oversight, or plain mischief, fails to sign, then fatally hundreds of voters are disenfranchised. Again, a corrupt politician needs only to team up with a few hundred presiding officers in an opponent's stronghold, and bingo, fortunes are turned.
The presumption is that actually this sheet that is not signed is actually the record of the elections.
But other people who are part of the process have signed.
Those other people who verified. I had the opportunity to discuss with some of these judges. Nobody went to check the specific ballot box.
The votes were counted in the full glare of the public.
The votes that were counted, who verified whether the votes that were counted are actually, that is what's been entered in the document. The only verification you have is the person who presided, authenticating that this is my work. So long as any pink sheet can contain signatures, and which without a presiding officer can be taken as a record of elections, then we do have a problem. So that's why I said we should look forward. Now, in view of this judgment, what steps can we take to avoid a situation where a declaration form can be only a true reflection or a true record of the elections without giving room for doubts?
But can I ask one question for you too? So would it make a difference if the presiding officer didn't fail to sign for one reason or another, but your representative or our representative, the two sides or all sides, signed?
What did they sign?
Oh, I'm saying that
You
are not, just a minute, and you didn't take, none of us had taken an objection to the document. You see, that we agree that this document is what your man signed. This document is what my man signed.
We agree.
Yes.
If we agree, then there's no issue, actually.
Then the Supreme Court petition should never have started.
Why?
Because there was not an issue of non-signing by your...
Because actually the law does not require...
And
the law does not require the polling agent's signature. It's not a controlling factor. The Constitution talks about the presiding officer.
What Nana Tudazi is talking about is what Justice Atuba threw at you. And he said it would be unfair and fraudulent for the petitioners to authenticate the results through their polling agent signatures and turn around to seek to invalidate on the purely technical ground of absence of presiding officer's signature.
But I find that very disingenuous.
Assuming
the constitutional requirement is merely technical. What is the basis of being the Supreme Court?
Dr. Zakaria, what is the essence of punishing the presiding officers if now, as we know by the Supreme Court's ruling, their non-signing does not invalidate the results?
Thank you so much. And you know, the direction I want to look at this particular matter is even just demonstrated by the discussion that is going. You realize that this request is very progressive, in that it's taking us several months back. Yeah. And you can see the discourse as it is going. And you know, I just want to make reference to what Justice Atubuga said in his introductory remarks about this particular issue. And he says that by far the irregularity which has engaged and sharply divided the court as to its consequence is absence of the signature of a presiding officer. This irregularity is anchored in Article 49 of the 1992 Constitution, which is, as far as relevant, provides as, you know, as it is stated in the various provisions. Now, you realize that, you know, that particular issue has been a divisive issue. So at this point in time, the judgment had been delivered. And not just delivered, after the judgment had been delivered, they've given certain recommendations, the way forward.
The parties are asking, what is the use of the law if it will not punish you for doing the wrong thing?
You see, if you want to go that line, first of all, if, like you were saying, the Electoral Commission is arguing clearly. They are saying that the parties at the meeting were not able to demonstrate that under the criminal code, that there exists an offense.
I haven't heard that argument from them. I'm the one asking the parties that they ought to have done their research and to convince them that this is the ground on which you can prosecute.
The Public Relations Officer of the Electoral Commission, in explaining the reasons why they cannot go ahead to more or less prosecute, is that they cannot find any basis in law for charging these particular officers. That's one. And again, if if somebody commits a criminal offense, who has the responsibility to actually, charge the
suggestion is that if you think the crime cannot be punished under crime, administratively, can't something be done?
So I think that is what they are referring to, because when they mention sanctioning, they are referring to Electoral Commission, which is not really the body that is supposed to more or less prosecute criminal offenses. It means that they are looking at other administrative actions. Again, if you look at it,
the EC's officers who misconducted themselves. Having sanctions.
That's it. So more or less, the request has been met in one way or the other, because sanctions have been meted out to some of these officers. Again, if any political party feels injured, or maybe somebody has suffered an emotional stress as a result of this particular negligent activity of an electoral officer, the person can go to court and actually, request for some form of damages to be paid. To be paid him for suffering as a result of negligence of electoral officer. Some of these, but for it to say that EC should prosecute, I think the word is sanction, and they are not really referring to prosecution. They are referring to other forms of punishment to these officers to ensure that in the future, other presiding officers do not.
I've just read to you a law. Joe Osehusu, who's a lawyer by training, is telling you that it appears that there's a way to catch them.
No, but you've pointed
so
out
that you don't repeat. You don't have that repeated. Have you heard people say that going into the next elections, we are in danger because people can choose to sign or not sign?
The point is that I think we should be progressing, and I think that the Supreme Court judgment didn't fall short of providing certain basic lines along which we should move as we try to progress. So we should look at these things. I've noticed that the NCC has taken a step ahead, and they are providing clinics, they are providing trainings, they are educating people about our electoral processes. Now, the political parties are supposed to ensure that they also join the NCC in educating their people to ensure that the next elections that we are going to have, everybody understands electoral laws and administrative principles of elections, and ensure that if a polling agent who is an agent of a political party signs a document, he's sure and confident that he's not coming back later on to say that this particular document is having a problem. Again, what is critical at this point is consensus building and understanding. The need for convergence with political parties and Electoral Commission is critical as we move forward. And I would appeal to the political parties to understand that the insistence on, I don't know really what they are looking for, but from the way I see things, the sanctions they are asking may not necessarily be legal prosecution.
In just a minute, tell me, Nana Todazi, going into the 2016 election, this particular matter, should it be left where it is?
Well, it is in the hands of IPAC, really. If the parties sincerely and seriously believe that the cure to it is punishment or threat of sanctions, then a law should be passed. That is as simple as that.
Do you agree to that?
I believe so strongly. And indeed, you see, probably I'll sound like a broken record. When it comes to law enforcement, the only way to prohibit people or to make people fear is the fear that he'll be punished, he'll be prosecuted.
I see.
When the people believe that nothing will happen, they already, the level of indiscipline in the country itself is a big issue. When people believe that, after all, nothing will happen to them, then you can be assured that
there's a danger that you might have people refuse to become polling agents if there are mistakes, ordinary standard error, failure under pressure. I fail to sign. I'll go into prison. You won't have polling agents.
What do you say to that?
It's can we say?
In fact, that's not the only issue they are going to determine at IPAC.
Yeah, I know.
They are also going to determine what should constitute overvoting, for example.
Exactly.
What should you do with no verification, no vote? What should you do with the request and the recommendation for the serial numbers or the codes?
And the Supreme Court judgment did not help us in any way in determining these things. It should have happened, yes. So I think that it shouldn't be much of a tussle. Let's go back into the judgment. We may find the pillars that we can put together and get the building going. It's a presiding officer and election officer.
Yes.
Okay. Now the electoral laws that you were referring to, offenses by election officers. I've been going through it.
Right.
What I don't see is non-signature of a presiding officer. It's not captured here. So that was not seen as an offense or an election offense. They were about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't quote them all because it's too lengthy.
It's seen as an offense in 75, but it doesn't provide the sanction.
Yes, so that is why it's an exercise in futility. So did the parties ask for prosecution or did they not?
They did.
Yes.
They did. So it's an exercise in futility. It doesn't exist. There's no basis for it.
Right. Thank you very much. I read a few of your messages. Bonti Benjamin says, we always talk about floods in this country every year, but little or nothing is done about it. Are we not doing more harm than good to ourselves as a people in a nation for failing to get priorities right? God save Ghana. You don't identify yourself. You say Accra's perennial flood is indeed worrying, but individuals tasked to plan and to regulate building sites lack the foresight. They are incompetent, and that is the problem. Atai Moro in Wellington says, until NADMO is well equipped with expertise and resources to be able to prevent disasters from occurring, rather than manage disasters, then they will occur. We will continue to experience worse disasters than we are currently seeing if we are not careful. Kobe from Kumasi says, Samson, we are desperately in need of them. For me, I think the problem is in two folds. We need to check our attitudes towards waste disposal, and two, our engineers and planners should be working. Ibrahim Kopa in Tamale writes, the perennial problem of floods in the nation's capital is as a result of the lack of political will by the government in demolishing buildings on waterways. P.P. Abraham from Saboba, is that correct, says that our leaders cannot repeatedly and perpetually do nothing about the perennial flood situation in the capital city and other parts of the country and expect different things to happen. They don't just have the interest of the nation at heart. That's a rather harsh one. We'll take a break here. We'll return and find out, and I'm asking a very critical question. Did Professor Kwesi Boche, did he say anything new or different apart from reinforcing Dr. Mahmoud Baumier's diagnosis and prescriptions.